Welcome to On the Town this week. Our show is coming to you from a little different location. I'm at a dinner party in Beverly Hills and I have some friends inside. I've invited them to come out into the hallway and talk to them, away from the different group, about the charities that they're involved with. Some of these people have been working in charities in Southern California for the last 25 years, and I really wanted to spotlight them, not on a show where you saw 20 or 30 different celebrities, which sometimes happens on our show, but where we would visit with maybe 3 or 4 different people and just spotlight them, where you'd not see a 10-second soundbite, but a 5, 7, 10-minute interview where we really got to know the people. I think I'm really going to enjoy this show and have you spend some time with some of my friends. So stay tuned and I'll bring the first one out and we'll see what they have to say. I'm here with really, I think, one of the more charitable comedians and performers in the movie industry, Mr. Norm Crosby. And we're at a private party in Beverly Hills tonight, and I've taken Norm aside because I really wanted to talk to him about a charity that's very near and dear to his heart and has been near and dear to some of our friends that have appeared on the show. About a month ago, we had Gloria Osbrink and Dr. House from the Ear Institute on with Bob Hope. And there's going to be a golf tournament in September down at Santa Ana Country Club. I believe it's around September 14th, 15th, in that area there.
Yes, it is something like that.
Yeah. And if you watch the credits at the end of the show, get our number and call us, and we'll make sure you'll get information on it. But Norm, that House Institute has been a charity that you have dedicated a lot of time to. And I'd like you to tell our audience about it.
Well, I've been privileged to become friends with the House family. I know Dr. House, his brother. They are just a most incredible institute. I remember when they were across the street. I remember how, watching them grow and to become the magnificent facility that it is today. But Dr. House has established something that it's world famous. I mean, people come from all over the world to observe, to learn. They've developed practices. They've developed methods that are just so exciting and innovating to the hearing community. I wear 2 hearing aids. I don't wear them all the time, just when I want to hear. But I got mine is from a service-connected disability. I was in the Coast Guard. We used to throw the ash cans over the fantail of the ship, and the concussion gave me some hearing problems. I've watched the growth. I've become, I guess, a spokesman for the entire hearing community because I was the first one to go on live television, Mike Douglas, Merv Griffin, Johnny Carson, Dinah Shore, and talk about hearing and have fun with it. Not make fun of it, but have fun with it. I used to do a thing with Johnny Carson. He'd say, "How's your hearing?" I'd say, "Great, I have a new hearing aid. And it has bihedral decibels and thermal amputas, and you don't have to yell at me anymore." And he'd say, "Gee, that's great. What kind is it?" I'd say, "It's 8:15. But we did things like that and had fun.
Well,
but the reaction, I must tell you, the reaction to it was unbelievable. And we would get thousands, literally thousands of letters from people saying, "My kids wouldn't go to the doctor, my wife, my husband, my mother." And after they saw you, they decided they would get help.
Right.
Because what we were preaching, I became the first spokesman for the Better Hearing Institute in Washington. What we're preaching is that there is no necessity anymore for anybody to suffer a handicap of hearing loss. There is help.
Yes.
Either surgically or through amplification, but you can be helped. And once people are aware of that, then they go out and they get help. For some reason, I don't know why, but hearing impaired people have a tendency to cover up their handicap. Anybody that needs glasses will go out immediately and buy a pair of glasses.
Right.
And people that have a hearing problem, and it's a general tendency everywhere, they pretend they don't. It's your fault. You don't talk loud. The TV is not working right. The radio's not working right. But that's what we try to overcome. And the House Institute, of course, is number one in leading, the entire industry in developing new practices physically and through their hearing aids. They have extreme testing capabilities there. They have all the equipment. My good friend Bill Austin from Starkey Hearing Aids. I'm sure you know of Bill.
Sure.
And Bill has research facilities. Not only is he a great businessman and manufacturer of wonderful instruments, but he has thousands of feet of space for just testing and developing and new ways that he can improve on hearing. And I think that's wonderful. As long as there are people like the Houses and people like Bill Austin that develop new processes, eventually they will be able to fix anybody's hearing problem.
Well, new to a lot of people realize is the new implants that are going in. The
cochlear implants. Yeah, they're wonderful.
And,
they're wonderful.
I've noticed a lot of people working had children who had hearing problems. And once they got their children involved, then the parents got involved more with the helping of research and the funding of research.
Well, that's the time to catch it. See, now they can tell even if babies have a hearing loss. And that's so important because the earlier you catch it, the earlier you start the development, then that's the earlier you get a solution.
Right, right. You've got to work that into your act, too, with the twisting of the words and the...
No, that had nothing to do with it. That really had nothing to do with it, Mike. That was something I developed because I wanted to do something that nobody else was doing. It had nothing to do. A lot of people have that misconception. It had nothing to do with the hearing problem. It was just a way of doing material in a different form. I discovered when I started to work the big time show business, to get out of Boston into New York and wherever, that most comedians were doing basically the same material.
Right.
But nobody was presenting it differently.
Right.
So I thought perhaps if I presented it differently by using the words and screwing up the words, that it would be a way to go. That's why I did it.
Well, I have to tell you, I've always been a great admirer of you because you also did it very clean.
Well, that's important too.
I mean, because there's a lot of comedians that would calm down for television, but you go to their act in Vegas, and it was hard to take on a constant basis. Always did a very clean act, I think.
Well, I never, we were from a different school. I grew up with Ed Sullivan, Johnny Carson, working nightclubs where you couldn't say hell or damn on stage, and I think that's the way to go because to sacrifice the laugh to hurt somebody's feelings, it isn't even a choice. I mean, why? We're entertainers. We're supposed to make people laugh and make people forget their problems. You're not supposed to go out on the stage and embarrass anybody. And I think a lot of the kids today, the young comics, forget that. They go out and they do what they want. Their peers, they go to these comedy clubs, and they have an audience of young people exactly like themselves who are into dope and destroying the establishment and all the things that the young kids are into. And of course they're funny, and of course they get reaction. Now they get lucky and they get a chance to go on TV or go to a Las Vegas or go to a big club, and they walk out to a more sophisticated audience, a more intelligent audience, and they find that it's not acceptable. Right. It's a shame.
Maybe that's why we see these guys last 3 or 5 years and they're gone.
Less than that.
Once the series is over after 2 seasons, you heard
Yeah, that's a fact. Well, that's a pretty good example, what you just said. I mean, the guys like Buddy Hackett and Shecky Green and myself and Rickles and Jan Murray and Jackie Gale. I mean, guys who have been around and sustained for over a long, long period and still be productive and still be working. The fact that they work clean must say something. It must say that that's the way to do it.
That's true. That's true. We pulled him out of a private party tonight, and
I'm getting hungry.
We have to get him back in, but I really wanted you to hear about his work with the House Institute because he's done a great job with the House Hearing Institute. Dr. House mentioned him to me several times.
Dr. House is my very dear friend. He's a magnificent man and a great benefactor, and that the whole institution should be.
He's done a great job. We'll be there with Bob Hope and Phyllis Diller just in the next 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll have our buddy here, and we have to put up with Johnny Francis off to the side giving us a hard time too. We're going to get him in here.
He's making signals.
All righty, baby. Thank you very much, Norm.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it, and thank you for talking on behalf of Dr. House.
Bye-bye.
I'm here in Beverly Hills at a private party, and I spotted kind of our mentor, who is one of the hosts of the Talk of the Town, which is syndicated all across the country, Ms. Ruta Lee. And Ruta's been a great example for us here on the Town with Mike Farah, because our shows are somewhat similar, but maybe she has a few more stars, like maybe 100 times more than we get from time to time.
I don't know about that, Mike, but the point is we come from the same place in the heart, which is that when good people pretty people from show business, good people who have gotten fame and acclaim and big bucks through their life, want to say thank you, God, in a very interesting way, which is to do something for somebody else. And you and I are strong believers in let's salute those people, let's honor those people, let's live with those people and enjoy them and the good work that they do for others.
Well, our show this evening is a little different than normally. Normally we take you to a regular charitable event and we interview 10, 15, 20 stars at a time. But tonight we're at a private party and 3 or 4 of my favorite people are here. And we're going to dedicate this show really to those 3 or 4 people who go out of their way and for many, many years have helped so many different charities. And I was lucky enough to spot Ruta here. Ruta, I really want to spend some time with you, unlike a regular one of our interviews, our 3 minutes with people.
You got it, darling.
And really let's start with the Thalians and how you got involved. And I know Debbie Reynolds and you and yourself have been alternating back and forth. But let's talk about the beginning of the Thalians and your involvement over the last number of years.
Well, you know, the Thalians was a group put together by a group of wonderful young Hollywood people back in the 50s who decided that, gee, they get together to have fun and games all the time.
Right.
Why don't they sell tickets to their fun and games, to hear these young stars sing or see them dance or hear a joke or whatever, and raise money for a charity? They sent out a liaison person to discover what charity needed support. And it's like a joke, all the good charities were gone.
Right.
And God love her, Jane Mansfield was the liaison person. And she came back saying, mental health, children's mental health. If you can take a child that can become a rotten apple in a barrel and change that child, then the whole community will be grateful and it will not cost a great deal of money.
And improve.
Exactly. So the
life.
Thalians was born, and the mental health of a child became the function. 18 years later, it was maybe 8 years later for me, we built our clinic, which was the first building to go in at the Cedars-Sinai complex here in Los Angeles, California.
Right, west side
It
Los
is a huge, wonderful building, and we take care of everything from pediatric to geriatric problems when it comes to mental health. And it is so wonderful to be sitting in a restaurant somewhere and have someone come up to me and say, I'm so sorry to interrupt your dinner, but I've got to tell you, your clinic and the work that you people in the Thalians do saved my child. My child wanted to commit suicide. My child was drugging out. My child wasn't doing well in school. Or my parent has suffered a tremendous loss and therefore cannot function anymore, but you've helped us. Whoa, what a great feeling, and what a lovely way to say, thanks God for the blessings, first of all, of living in America. I think we are so lucky. If we have health and vitality, we are so lucky. And if we can make a buck or two, or if we can spread the word whatever way we can, then it is incumbent upon us who are healthy and sound and able to get out there and say, come on. And Americans are the most generous people on the face of this earth.
Right.
If you go out there and say, I need $10, I need $100, I need $1,000, here's my story, you'll get it.
Right.
You'll get it if it's a legitimate and good cause.
That's correct. That's correct. You know, it's funny. You saw the passion she has in her, and that really that's what it takes to get out there. It's not easy because everyone is looking for those charitable donations.
Sure.
And we see it every week. Of course, we use celebrities ourselves, and we go to a different charity every week. And it's interesting. We had over 100 stars on our show in the last 6 months, and we've even had Bobby Short come out 2 weeks ago and do a charity event for us. But it's hard because each person who is generous in our industry, they're tugged from 15 different areas.
You know, that's something that I'm glad you brought up, because sometimes, you know, we hear this one is a pot-smoking, hard-drinking, womanizing, sex-minded idiot, you know, in the business. And you never hear about the good stuff.
Right.
And if it's a charity in Des Moines, Iowa, or in Buffalo, New York, or Tucumcari, New Mexico, a star will be called upon, come and be there, come and lend your name,
For
come
free.
and sing a song for free.
And pay your own way and everything else. It's tough.
And you will find, I'm sure you've noticed it more than anybody, that they seem to be the same people that keep doing it.
Yes, it's true.
It's difficult now. I find that our young people are willing to save a whale, which is wonderful, or willing to, as I say, pluck a duck, but not willing to give much to their fellow man. So, well, we have to take care of everything. They're all God's creatures, so.
Well, it is, but I think what's happened, and I have found some of the true stars with the long-lasting 20, 30, 40-year careers, the ones who have kept perspective of what the public looks for out of them, have given back, and it seems to pay them back too, because they could, I saw the other day, we were at an event, Tony Martin walked in with Sid Charisse, and she still stopped the room.
Oh, and how?
And Mitzi Gaynor walked in.
Yes.
These people. And it's interesting, you look at those particular people and how they've just done this for so long, and yet they still have the respect from their peers. And you're getting a lot back, and they're not doing it to get back, but it is the fact that we look at some of the great people like Danny Kaye, Audrey Hepburn, who gave so much, and the respect. Their lives were so much enriched themselves later on.
When you stop and think that lovely Audrey Hepburn, with whom I did a picture, I did a picture called Funny Face with her, and we became friends, that look how she lives on.
Right.
After her career, not only on film, but in the hearts of millions.
Right. That's true.
Whose maybe pain she alleviated, or at least the effort was made, and that's remarkable.
We're going to, I think at this stage, I'm going to start asking her some questions about some of these stars she's worked with, and let's move on to that one, because that's something I really want to get to her. Now, look, let me ask you this question first.
No, I did not sleep with Frank Sinatra.
Did you have to say it?
I think I'm the only girl in town that can say that.
Did I really ask her that? Well, I know you were friends with Frank Sinatra. Let's talk about that.
I was his leading lady in a picture called Sergeants 3. Leading lady with Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, God rest his soul, Sammy Davis, God rest his soul,
What is this,
Peter Lawford, God rest his soul. Oh.
You know what she's naming? She's naming the Rat Pack.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you were in the Rat Pack. Is that...
Yes. Hallelujah for me. I had the best time of my life.
Joey Bishop lives right around the corner from us, and I was in Paris last month, and there was a show called Mad Dogs, a movie with Henry Silva.
Yes.
Ocean's 11 with the Rat Pack too.
Yes.
And the stories, and it's interesting because there's been a few stories on the Rat Pack again, in the days of Vegas and how they took over the sands.
The whole big revival. The BBC did a great big huge special on the Rat Pack, and they came in and they sat with me at my house for hours taping, stories and things, adventures that we had. But Frank Sinatra, the Pope, is probably one of the most generous men I ever hope to meet. We're lucky because, Norm Crosby is a generous man.
Right.
Jack Carter is a generous man. These are people who give and give and give. Frank gives, does many, many events, did a beautiful event for us for the Thalians, has done many events for lots of people, but then he does a lot of things that nobody knows about.
Right.
He will pick up tabs on hospitals for people without their knowing it.
Right.
He will hear about somebody who is destitute somewhere and will buy them a house, And God love him, he has been very, very blessed in many ways, but he shares those blessings. And while the press is always quick to pick up on. Now, of course, they're leaving him alone, but they used to pick up on, he got sassy with somebody in a club, or he punched someone out, It's amazing how fans who are so sweet and so dear can turn like that. You know, people would come up to Frank in the middle of dinner and hold his hand down when he's trying to put food in his mouth and ask some dumb question. Yes, he would get just a little bit PO'd, you know. But as a rule, he was very quiet, and I'm sorry that he's had so many misadventures to his credit, and so few people know about the wonderful things that he's done.
I think some of the people in the industry, people who were close to Sammy Davis Jr. and some of the things that happened, that was, you know, when no one else really cared, a few people, but he's like that now. We kind of got off a little bit because we were really going to ask you about your personal experiences with the Francis Albert and some of the things like working on the set with him and what it was like with the characters of the Rat Pack.
It was more fun than I've ever had in my life. And I was just a youngster and kind of all gaga and starry-eyed. Of course, I still am. I mean, major stars walk in and I'm, be still my heart. You know, I still love wonderful big stars. And to be treated like their kid sister. We were shooting up in Kanab, Utah, a great deal of the time when we weren't shooting in Hollywood. And they had worked it out so that each one of the guys would play a week at the Sands. Frank played, so we went down for his opening, and then we went down for his closing, and the next day we went down for Dean's opening. And then because he had a fleet of planes, Frank Sinatra had a fleet of planes up in Kanab, Utah. And I was there, Mike, just recently. We were driving home. I did a show in Texas that I hope is going to be making it to Broadway called Grossingers. And we were driving back and going through Zion Canyon and all the pretty places. And we stopped at Kanab, Utah. And my heart stood still because there on the walls were the pictures of everybody that ever stayed at this hotel when it was the place that all the movies, the Westerns, were shot. And to see all those beautiful guys that I loved so much that, well, like I said, they treated me like their little sister.
Right. You mentioned Dean Martin, Peter Lorre, Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop. I mean, what a great set of names.
Yes.
The Sands, I mean, was the hotel in those days when they ruled.
It's where the action was, and the guys, the so-called Rat Pack, were something unto themselves. They were unbelievably dear and funny and wonderful, but along with all the fun that they had, they did an awful lot of good too.
Yeah. Well, they even attracted the attention of one of our presidents who wanted to be part of that group, and seeing Mr. Lawford, I think, is his brother-in-law.
Yes.
And some of the others, even on the fringes, I'll tell you, I saw a couple of things. I rented a movie with my daughter this week. I rented Guys and Dolls.
Yes.
You know, with Frank and that. And then, like I said, when I was in Paris, I saw Mad Dogs with Henry Silva, who was in that. And then the other night on television, I saw Ocean's 11.
Fun movie.
What a cast of characters. I don't understand why I haven't done a remake of that, of putting another group of guys together, because that was just such a fun movie. It's unbelievable.
They had a very, very good time working together. They had a good time.
Cesar Romero was in that.
Oh, yes.
Played the potential father-in-law of Peter Lorre in that movie.
You know, when I stop and think that when I was a little girl, I was born in Montreal, Canada.
Now, see, I always thought you were from Texas.
Everybody does, because that's our home. We have a home in Texas. I was born in Montreal, though, of Lithuanian parents. And so I knew what hard work was. I knew what scrimping and saving was. I knew that you work all of your life and you save and you do, and if you can accumulate anything, it's wonderful, you know. And in our business, in show business, it's very tough, because one year, you know, you do something wonderful and you make a considerable amount of money compared to most people in the world.
Right.
Then 5 years will go by when you're in the poor line,
Yeah, well,
you know.
that's the way this business is.
That's the way it is, and you have to learn to kind of ride with it and do the best you can. But when I stop and think that I grew up hearing these names like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Cesar Romero, and they all wound up to be good friends.
Right.
And I keep saying, what a blessing.
Yeah.
What a wonderful, wonderful blessing to have known and loved these people. You know, it's really great.
You know, I used to see Cesar Romero a lot, especially I was involved with Danny Thomas for 30 years, St. Jude's, and Caesar and Jeffries, who we had on the show a little while ago, always made a presence. I mean, there's Ann Miller, who was with us just a
another
couple weeks
good
ago.
friend, yes.
These women just look so great at the
You know that you're talking about all of the people who are willing to do for other people. So maybe those of us who do for other people will stay young and gorgeous forever, even when we're 95.
Well, Ann Jeffries, I have to tell you, I don't know her age, and maybe I really do, but she played David Hasselhoff's mother in Baywatch.
Yes.
And she looks stunning. Ann Miller looked fantastic. I was just amazed at just their dignity, their poise. We talked a little bit earlier about Audrey Hepburn. How
You
these
know who fits in here? One of the best people that God ever put on this earth is my buddy, Debbie Reynolds.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about Debbie.
Let's.
You two go way back, and it's like a tandem together.
Yes, I was kind of a junior member of the Thalians way back when. And by the way, the Thalians was a young group of people who got tired of being called pot-smoking, hard-drinking, sex-minded idiots who had nothing to contribute to the community. And they said, let's do something terrific. They sold tickets for $25 a head. Well, now we have become a major force and a major big business. And Debbie Reynolds watched me working as an underling in the Thalians, and somewhere down the long line she said she should be one of our presidents. Now, Debbie wasn't the first president. Hugh O'Brien was our first president, followed by the wonderful singer Maggie Whiting, Margaret Whiting, followed by Debbie, followed by Donald O'Connor, followed by Ruta Lee. But since gads, way back when, I have been either president or chairman of the board. And so the two of us really work very, very hard. And it's wonderful, you know, what we accomplish there. But Debbie is remarkable. Debbie could do a book, and should, on how to be generous.
Right.
Not everybody knows how. You know, honest to God, if you're at home and you say, I'm on unemployment, I haven't got anything to give, yeah, you do. You can give some time reading for the blind. You can maybe drive somebody to a medical appointment, or if nothing else, you can smile on the elevator to somebody and just make their day a little bit brighter.